Welcome to the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and today I'm joined by Rob Standley from Playback Distribution. What's happening, man? How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic, man. I'm doing good. AXPONA was great, and now I'm ready to move on and get everything prepped in the next year. So it's going to be good.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a good time. We had a lot of great vendors and displays, but of course, you turn your attention quickly from AXPONA to what's next, and we've got a lot going on this year.
That's true. So, Rob, for people that don't know you, maybe give us a little, history of how you got into hi-fi and where you come from.
Sure. Well, I come from a farm and ranch in the great state of Montana. That's where I was born and raised. And
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I was, brought up in rural Montana, and I've always just been a lover of music. It's always been a big part of my life. I was, the kid in high school whose stereo was worth way more than the car was. I remember cruising the drag and, broadcasting, whatever it was in the day, hair metal and, usually into the harder rock stuff. So that's where I grew up, and really, from an early age, really latched on to music, as did all of my older siblings and even my mom and dad. I remember that they had one of those big old console stereos, and mom was always listening to vinyl and, a lot of the classic albums that we see in some of the demos today.
Wow. And then how did that, transform into being in the business?
Yeah, it's a good question. The intention was not to do that. The intention was to, be a lover of music. And, I played guitar a little bit in high school, sang a little bit. I always had some musical interest, but really was going to go to university, be a lawyer, etc. And life had another plan. I became a young dad, and I needed to make some money pretty quickly. And so I took a sales job in hi-fi. In fact, the first job that I took, I think they were excited to have me because they thought I could remodel the car audio room, and that looked like a lot of work to them. So, I dug in, and, I was building subwoofer enclosures on the side and beginning to learn about, the audio hi-fi world beyond car stereo and into home audio. And, from there, the career just kind of took off. So never looked back, and very happy that it's brought me to here today.
And now you started Playback Distribution. How long has Playback been around now?
Yeah, Playback will be just short of 2 years old. It'll be 2 years old this summer. And I did about 30 years. I'm showing my age here. In a couple of other stops. One was, out in Montana. I worked for the retailer I talked about, and wore a lot of hats in that organization over the course of a couple decades. Just learned a ton. Doing buying and merchandising, marketing, sales, etc. Pretty much the whole gamut. And then I really was eager to get to the manufacturer side and understand that better. So I went to work for Klipsch, moved to Indianapolis, and spent about a decade over there, a little bit longer than a decade before starting Playback. So those experiences have brought me here, and I just did some soul searching about a couple of years ago and said, all right, what's next, and what do you want to do from here? And one of the things that just really got me, excited as I started thinking more and more about it was the early days, and sort of that awareness or awakening to that three-dimensional hi-fi experience. And I can remember that my first experience was on a set of Vandersteins. It was not in the store that I worked for at the time. And I was hearing things I'd never heard, and it changed my perception of what was possible with the music and playback experience. So, that was a hook for me. And ultimately, Lenny, I'd like to be a part of something for the rest of my career that can bring that kind of experience to more people.
And I think you're doing that. You're doing a pretty good job at this. Like, Playback's really grown. It's when I think about it, thinking that it's only been 2 years. I mean, you've done a lot in 2 years, and you have a lot coming up. But what are some of the brands for people who aren't maybe familiar with Playback? What are some of the brands that you guys represent?
Yeah, we're super fortunate. We have a great group of vendor partners, not only great products, but great people behind them. So some of the names that most people would recognize would be Esoteric, TEAC. Certainly, some of the folks have been paying attention lately, Advanced Paris. And we're excited about a new electronics line to us called Java Hi-Fi out of New Zealand too. And on the speaker side, we've got some iconic names, PMC and Amphion, both big in the studio space. And we've got Vienna Acoustics, which of course most people recognize and know. We have hand built Esprit cables out of France. We've got Quadraspire racks, which are one of the more iconic racks in the business. And we're adding some new things coming up as well.
So I mean, like, I don't know, TX been around a long, long time, right? So that's a great brand now with this resurgence of CDs that's going on right now, like, and even cassettes. TX got to be feeling pretty good, and I know they do more than just that, but they make some really good CD players.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that TEAC Corporation, right, is Esoteric and Tascam. So it's a whole family show, and there's a ton of experience and resources there to be able to develop awesome gear. And we're talking about a brand that was around at the beginning of the tape format, right, with reel to reel and some of what was happening there. So it's a natural for them to be in that business with both feet, obviously on the cassette side today. And as far as CDs go, their shared technology between what Esoteric does with some of their VRDS technology and what shows up in the upper end of the TEAC line. So while they're not the same design, there is some technology where they've been able to learn from those things and do it at a little bit more affordable scale. So yeah, we're excited about TEAC. They make great range of products, really really good quality products, and they're not, they're not at the hi-fi price, right? That a lot of these brands command today, and that's important to me. I grew up, as I said, in an area where um, you didn't have that kind of money, right, to spend on some of these high dollar hi-fi systems. And I think how we bring more people to the party is we offer options and opportunities for them to get started with something that's a great experience and really compelling without, being out of reach.
Yeah, and having that trickle down technology from Esoteric is really good for TEAC. But there's the other brand that is receiving, I feel like, all the attention right now is Advanced Pairs. So this seems to be the thing, and I'm sure if you hear Macintosh Killer one more time, uh, but I guess that's a good thing because this is what everybody's saying, and they seem to be very popular and they're very unique. They have a great look, they have a great sound, great build. So how's it feel to be on with Advanced Paris? Because that seems to be very big right now, very popular.
Yeah, Advanced Paris is a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to a great year with Advanced Paris because we've got some new things coming up as the year moves ahead. So yeah, I mean, it looks great. It's got a ton of value. It sounds very good. Most people are, kind of drawn in by the look, and then they realize the value, and then when they turn it on, they go, "Wow, this is sci-fi. This is not mid-fi," and they're pretty impressed. And so a lot of that is, taking people to check it out and then ultimately own it and be super excited about it. So, we see them as a small team from France that has been able to bring forward some pretty unique products and has a great story. We went over there at Munich last year and afterwards stopped in at France and spent some time with that team, shot a little video, about what they're about, hung out with them in the streets of Paris. And that's, one of the things I mentioned, that we've got some great companies that build great products, but they're also great people, just down to earth, love what they do, love the craft, and the stuff they're turning out, they're paying attention to the details and it shows up.
Yeah, they're always fun. I've met them a few times at the shows, and it's always a good time seeing them. They remember me. I remember them. It's good stuff. Now, you also have a couple new brands, right? Some new stuff that you're just adding or has just been added. What do we got brewing with that?
Yeah, we're always working on things. And we're headed to Munich shortly, and one of the things you do at Munich is obviously we're going to have some great meetings with our current suppliers and see what's new with them. We're also going to walk around and see what's available that may not have been discovered or may have been discovered, but really not brought into this country and had a spotlight put on it yet. So we're always on the hunt, right, to curate some things that might be interesting in the U.S. market. So we are standing up a couple of new brands. We've soft launched on our site right now are Velodyne and MJ Acoustics. And so far in Playback's portfolio, we've lacked a subwoofer offering. And what the two different brands give us is some strong coverage for both the hi-fi and the home theater market. MJ is a UK built brand, built in the UK. Even the amplifiers are basically sourcing parts in Europe and building them there. And they take an approach that will allow you to bring in a high level input if you don't have gear that has a subwoofer output or traditional outputs that could be used for a subwoofer, get it phased correctly and really dialed in, underneath your main set of speakers to support them with better bass performance. They've got a great app as well, which I think is important because a lot of these subwoofers for hi-fi listeners, if they do try to integrate a sub, one of the frustration points is as you go from cut to cut or album to album, a lot of times you want to make a fine adjustment to that subwoofer or it calls attention to itself, or maybe it's not enough. And so being able to do that, with your phone or your iPad in the palm of your hand from your listening chair doesn't, it takes you right back into the experience and you're getting lost in the music. And, that's what this thing's all about. So Velodyne, I think most people know Velodyne, maybe not the history of kind of what happened over the last decade or so with the brand, but essentially they ceased U.S. operations and were bought by a German company. And the German company has quietly been growing the product portfolio, bringing it current, and they have been distributed in the United States on the CI side by Origin Acoustics. They really weren't, speaking or covering the hi-fi dealers like we do. So this is a brand that has several recent introductions in their subwoofers, and they've got, again, some things coming out as we go through the balance of the year. They're going to be interesting, I think, to our customers and help them have more solutions in their kit. And then the third one is Audio Solutions out of Lithuania. This is a brand that you can go online and build a custom speaker, custom colored speaker, and do it in a number of finishes and trim work, even accoutrements like carbon fiber, etc., can be added. And it's a lot like buying a Range Rover online. You can go and pick your color, and all of the options and all the trims will just cascade down right on your webpage, and ultimately you've got a PDF you can download that shows you the entire configuration. It prices it along the way. So we're excited about that because I think in today's world, a lot of customers want the opportunity to make something that's just right for them.
I think that's one of the first things, like when somebody's looking for like a new hi-fi system for their living room. I said, it's very important that the aesthetics are right. To be able to like customize something for any room in the house, that's very unique. And I think that'll be very popular. I do like that idea.
Yeah, Java lets you do that too. One of our amplifier brands. So they've got 3 different faceplates and 8 different combinations that you can do on the outer shell. And we like to say that we want to promote products that look good and sound good together. I think a lot of times people inherently talk about the synergy of different components, right? When I pair this with that and I listen to it, they go together and they make beautiful music, as opposed to sometimes some combinations, are not as creative. But the looks are that way too. If you've got a great sounding system, but it doesn't look cohesive or doesn't look like it belongs in your living space, that's an emotional disconnect, and probably an emotional disconnect for other people in your family as well. So when you can put things together that look harmonious, look great before you even turn them on, and then when you turn them on, sweet music comes out, that's the ticket.
Yeah, and then Velodyne, you're right. I think a lot of people know Velodyne, but it was like what happened to them. And that's an interesting, company to bring into the fray because, that's a really well-known brand. It was immensely popular. They made really good subs, a lot of which are still in use. I mean, I know some people that have those in use in their systems currently. And I think that's like a home run of a brand to bring in. I mean, I don't, learning the story of the past, decade or so was interesting to, hear how they kind of went away. I just didn't know. I just had no idea they were still making stuff. So that's going to be, I think, a really fun one. I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, one of the things we've been working on, Lenny, is to make sure we have the right support system in place for the significant number of Velodyne customers that exist out there. And what that means is that we'll be hosting Velodyne USA as a way for people to communicate directly if they've got a subwoofer that they need a part for, they've got support questions for, et cetera, that we can go ahead and support that and speak to that install base. So that's something we're looking forward to, is talking to more and more of those customers about their passion and love for that brand, and helping them continue that now in the United States.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that this year. That'll be really good. But you also may have some other stuff coming up this year. Anything else pressing, or anything that we can look forward to in the next couple months, or maybe some hints? I like to kind of know that kind of like to know what's going on. Try to find something out on the podcast. So.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that we did last year, earlier than we expected, was we entered the CI side of the business with Playback Custom. And we did it for a very specific reason. Number one, Playback was growing a little faster than we thought it would. And so it's sort of, earmarked maybe year 3. We'll dust that off and start working on that plan and stand it up. But we had a great opportunity with not only the PMCCI products, which are in our range today, but also with the brand from Australia called Crix, to enter studio with that brand and start distributing that brand in the US and Canada. But what we're excited about this year is that we've got an opportunity to demo both PMC and Crix actively at CEDIA, as well as having a larger booth display to be able to talk to customers about those complete ranges and some other things we're working on. So we're going to have a demo booth that is a partnership with Trinov, with Crix, and a partnership with Storm Audio, with PMC, and we're going to show what's possible with both of those brands and some upper range systems. So I'm just really excited to share with the industry what these brands can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are using CI in their homes and new builds, and it'd be nice to see some new, brands out there doing that. Because it is a big market that uses CI. So, and I've been to CI; it's a good experience out there. It's fun stuff. So, it's a great place to show that off.
We find a lot of our customers, they may have a great listening room, or a den that they've kitted out to listen to music, but oftentimes they have a multi-channel, home theater or media room space that they also enjoy, and other family members, might prioritize even over the listening room. So, our plan is to have great options for our dealers and for those end users that want to create world-class experiences, regardless of, we're talking about a hi-fi system or a multi-channel playback system.
So you do a lot of these demos, these shows and stuff. So what kind of music do you like to use for your demo tracks?
Gosh,
are you strict on I'm using the stuff that everybody else uses, or do you use a couple unique things mixed in, or what's on that? What's some of the stuff on that demo playlist that might surprise people?
Well, that's a little bit of a can of worms question and a loaded question, because there's obviously some cuts out there that a lot of people use are going to stretch their systems and are recorded great and probably sound pretty good even on a boombox. But we try to mix in a lot of things, some popular stuff that people might hear. I'm a headbanger. So, if you're in a demo room with me, you're probably going to hear some Tool or something of that ilk occasionally. We're going to pay attention to, something that's good music, well recorded, but definitely going to mix genres and not just play a bunch of standards or a bunch of audiophile cuts. We'll tend to mix in some playlists and have some fun, and maybe, the later the show goes, the more of that you're probably gonna hear. And we also enjoy learning from some of the participants. They come in and they want to hear this, they want to hear that, and let's be fair. Some of those cuts are not great or well recorded, but a lot of them are. And so I enjoy that discovery process, and we're typically adding on, to our cues as the show rolls on, and we're always discovering new stuff. So that's part of the process. That's what makes it fun. It's not
I
just
feel like
about
when you're talking about those cuts that are not meant for hi-fi systems, you might be talking about when I'm in your room just listening to random stuff. So what are you listening to? Have you listened? You're a big Tool fan, but like, what kind of new music are you listening to? Any new tracks coming out? Tom's a big Tool fan, so I'm not. I don't know. Maybe they have a new album. I have no idea. I know they're still touring, but
No, they don't have a new album. That happens every decade or so. Takes a
okay.
while for them to come up with something. But actually, I haven't been listening to necessarily too much new in the last week. But I've got a concert coming up that I'll be going to with my wife and my two of my three older siblings, which is includes Pussifer and Primus and A Perfect Circle.
Wow. Okay.
Maynard's other band and friends of Maynard. So I've been going back in the back catalog there and listening to some APC, and I'm also listening to some Primus. That's a band that I know but haven't really went deep in the catalog, so I've been listening a little bit more of them to get familiar for the show. I think that's one of the things that can get lost in all this sci-fi talk in the industry and the kid is going and listening to live music and the way that it makes you feel, I think is an important part of the mix for everybody in this industry. Continuing to experience that, whether that's, a small venue and a jazz club, something intimate, or something a little bit, more grandiose where you've got a larger performer. Something gets your blood boiling, gets you going creatively, and expands your mind to, what's out there in the art.
I mean, that's what we need to keep the industry going, right? Everybody's got to keep that feeling on. So, the industry is always changing, and there's a lot of tough things going on right now in the industry. But where do you see the industry in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I don't necessarily. I probably spent more time at my last post thinking big picture about all of those things in the industry because I work for a lot larger company that, was tuned into more frequencies in terms of the categories and the price points and things like that. Right now, we're more laser focused on what are the things out there, the brands and experiences that are unique, that are really creating a memorable playback experience, and how do we then get those people, the light of day, if you will, get those brands the light of day? That's really what we think about. So, one of the things that we think about in the environment that we're currently in, which is a little bit challenging, right? There's a lot of uncertainty out there. People aren't necessarily, in the mood to make large purchases, depending on what's going on in their own lives and how they're viewing the economy and everything else. So we try to cut through the noise with that and really focus on the value. So one of the things that, we sent out this week is we're going to be sending out opportunities for our dealers to communicate to customers about things that have a special value, regardless of whether, we're in April, May, June, and whatever the number is, if you will, on imports coming in. Stuff that was a good deal back in January, if you will. So, we're really laser focused on how do we appeal to a first-time buyer? How do we make sure that our brands can get the light of day and get their story told, and that someone has a great place to go experience those brands, which is what the journey is all about.
I think you're doing a great job at it. It's pretty exciting, seeing, because we've been friends for a while. I've known you for at least 2 years. I feel like it feels like a lot
Sounds
more
right.
than that, but maybe it's, it's about it. Maybe a little bit before that, but you've really made a lot of progression, and the brands that you're putting in the portfolio are amazing. It's good that, and they're getting a lot of press. I mean, and a lot of people are getting to enjoy them. So I've seen a lot of people who just love their advanced pairs stuff and enjoy the TEAC stuff. And we went and experienced Esoteric stuff at AXPONA. It was a really good time. So I think what you're doing in the industry is really good.
Well, thanks, Lenny. We just kind of put one foot in front of the other. I remember several years back, my older brother and I both worked at the same retail company out in Montana. And I gave him a call one day because he was running one of the stores. And I asked him what his numbers were. I was in a sales role at the time, or sales management role at the time. And he said, yeah, I don't know. And I, well, what do you mean you don't know? And he said, well, I don't really worry about stuff like that. I worry about what it takes to, to drive the results that we're looking for. And that really struck home with me, struck a chord. And ever since that, it's stuck with me on how do you operate every day? You think about the things that are going to make a difference and are core to your mission, and you just stay on it. So, we don't have a number to hit. We don't have an end zone, if you will, with what we're doing. We're doing something that we believe in, and it's something that's about the passion. And if we can bring more people to the party and they can have a great experience and our brands can benefit, then everybody wins. That's what we're looking to do.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. I do have another question that's come up recently in some of these episodes, and I'm curious what your take is. So, do you listen to the same music in your car that you listen to in your hi-fi system?
Oh, good question. I'll say sometimes, right? I mean, my favorite music is my favorite music. But I would say that, in my car, I'm probably more in explore mode than I would be at home in terms of listening to like Sirius XM, or maybe even clicking on a radio station if I'm driving through somewhere I'm not familiar with, just to see what's on, what they're about, try to get a little bit of flavor. So um, I definitely, when I'm in a mode and, I want to get from here to there, I'm going to put on a productivity playlist, right? I'm going to put on some fast hardcore metal, maybe some stuff without any voices, and I'm going to make time. But if I'm just along the way, along for the ride, I'm probably going to switch on and try to discover something new. So I think that's a little bit different than the home system where you've got, so many options. I'm not using room, in the car. I'm using a little bit more dated technology that I can't control.
No, I see that now, because I go to the shows and I'll play whatever tracks that have been playing on FM in the car.
Yeah.
And apparently this is not something that everybody does. So it's interesting to get people's takes. And I've talked to people who say they don't they listen to nothing in the car. And I've talked to a lot of people that listen to podcasts or books and stuff like that. It's always interesting to see, not just what somebody's listening to in the car, but like, do you listen to that kind of music on your hi-fi system? Because a lot of people are like, no, I listen to like specific music on the hi-fi system, and I don't understand that. But so now I'm very interested in what everybody does, because now I'm feeling like I do things the wrong way.
I think you gotta, if you're in this business and you're evaluating gear, you gotta wear two hats sometimes, right? You put on your hat of like, okay, I'm gonna listen to a few cuts and I know what they're supposed to sound like, or certain elements of those, and you're looking for that. But for me, if I'm switching off that mode, right, I'm just gonna play stuff I like and get lost a bit in some stuff that I may, rediscover or find out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show. It was great having you. I know we've been meaning to do this for a little while, and life just gets busy. So
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always good rapping with you.
Yeah, it's been really fun, Rob, and I thank you for coming on. Playback Distribution, Advanced Pairs, Velodyne, TEAC, Esoteric, PMC, Vienna Acoustics, Java Hi-Fi. I can almost name them all. I maybe not even close. I don't know, but I appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun for the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. Lenny and Rob, we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.